Right-wingers, honestly, they're good at a lot of stuff. They're great at blowing up the debt and giving us huge deficits. They're awesome at kissing Vladimir Putin's ass and going over to sort of bow before him on the 4th of July after he attacks our country. Great at family values, saying you're for family values, and then like Newt Gingrich and Rudy Giuliani having like 27 wives and even cheating on them. They're awesome at saying that they believe in the rule of law and letting Donald Trump break basically every law this country has had since its founding and not doing a damn thing about it. They've got talents, right? They've got lots of talents, but I gotta say, whining. Is there anything that they're better at than whining and crying and, oh, we're the victims, and I know that like we're a minority of the population and we couldn't win the popular vote in a presidential election if you threw millions of votes our way. But even with all of that, they still just whine and cry constantly. It is honestly the one thing that unites all of them. And here we are again. So disinformation, as you know, is hugely dangerous. It has convinced people to drink their own urine because they think that they're going to get better from COVID or not get COVID. Ivermectin, we don't even need to go into that. We've got the Donald Trump telling them to put bleach in their system, and plenty of them did that. There's worse examples everywhere. There's a reason why they believe that the Ukraine, were Nazis and Russia was on the right side originally until all the media came out. We have a huge disinformation problem. And this is something we've been trying to grapple with as the internet has grown and social media for 20 years now. So the Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security under Joe Biden says they're going to set up a board of Disinformation Governance Board, I believe it will be called. And that is to try to combat the kind of disinformation that harms our country from within and puts us in danger from foreign competitors, those who would attack us. What's the predictable right-wing reaction? Wow, it's a ministry of truth. And they love when they pull stuff out from 1984, like any of them have ever read the book or have a clue what Orwell was talking about. Let me tell you, he's talking about them. He's talking about the fascists. Now, if you're in Texas, what they'll do is have somebody put a bounty on your head if you want to get an abortion or if you try to leave the state, and they'll throw you in prison like they just did with somebody. That clearly is not authoritarian, but trying to stop disinformation is. And Jack Posobiec, who's if he's not a Russian stooge, he's not being paid to be one, man, he's losing out on a great opportunity. Candace Owens, J.D. Vance, one of the few human garden gnolls walking around actually running for office. A lot of them took to Twitter today to whine and cry because of what Joe Biden said. And so I think it's important to look at the actual facts. We are the country compared to other democratic countries that has had the lowest vaccination rate. Why? Because in countries like Germany and the United Kingdom, when they found a way to have free speech but not let disinformation go unattended, they've been able to combat some of this in a way that we just haven't been able to. The same thing with the love for Putin in this country has come from that. But the bigger thing is they're convincing people to commit violent acts with things they're saying. They don't care. Some of them want to do this, and they want to do it because, of course, it helps further their governments and maybe make some money. Tucker Carlson probably, an angel gets its wings, and Tucker Carlson makes a nice, crisp $1,000 bill every time he probably incites some sort of an attack. But here's the thing. The Center for Strategic and International Studies did a study, and they found that 2/3 of the attacks that have been happening in this country, terrorist attacks, are coming from right-wingers. Specifically, they looked at a period in 2020 for 6 months between January and May. 2/3 of the attacks. And look, we can go through the litany. Timothy McVeigh was reading NRA literature, and he blew up buildings and killed people. Cesar Shayak, who had sent the letter bombs to various Democratic members of Congress. The plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, the various plots which were foiled to try to attack Barack Obama during his presidency, of which there were many. I mean, I got a list here. I could go on and on about, the Olympic bombing by Eric Rudolph. Yeah, that was right wing. Ammon Bundy taking over the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge in Oregon and having a standoff there. Cliven Bundy refusing to pay his taxes and having to have federal officials come in and training their guns on those federal officials because he refused to pay his taxes out in Nevada. I mean, again and again, it is right-wing terrorism. We're not even talking about the bombs that were found, like the one found by the DNC accidentally. Oh yeah, and then there was January 6th, where a bunch of right-wing nuts using disinformation, using the internet, convince their people wearing sweatshirts like Camp Auschwitz to go attack our capital, attack police, kill a few who eventually, some committed suicide, some died from their injuries, stabbed, punched, kicked, stomped, 140 or so or more, broke windows. Yes, I'll say it again, smeared feces on the wall. Okay, this is a real problem. And we need a Disinformation Governance Board. And I will remind you that under Barack Obama, when Janet Napolitano, former governor of Arizona, and she was the head of DHS, Homeland Security, had a report she released on the danger of right-wing violence because there were veterans returning, some of whom had PTSD. No, it wasn't an attack on all veterans. Veterans are wonderful people most of the time. These were a few people, but they had the training, and some of them had mental difficulties, challenges. And what did the right wing do? They screamed and yelled and said it was partisan, wah, wah, wah. And so we end up not doing what we need to do to prevent terrorist attacks in this country. Again, 2/3 during a period of time that was measured by CSIS, a smart and important think tank, were coming from the far right, and they're coming because of disinformation. In fact, at some point in 2019, we had over 90% of them coming from the far right. Okay, this is a danger to our country. This is something that must be handled. When Gretchen Whitmer has plots to kidnap her, when Gabby Giffords is getting shot in the head, when they're threatening Joe Biden constantly, and the rest of this, we need to handle it. We need to stop disinformation. We need to stop the threats that are coming to elected officials, to those who just choose to speak out, to journalists, and this Disinformation Board will do it. No, it is not a ministry of truth. That would be them trying to take away women's rights and gay rights and immigrants' rights and every other right. There's a little ministry of truth. I do love how they take a phrase they probably saw on a blackboard somewhere, even though they didn't read the book, and they try to turn that into something, that it's not. In the end, Republicans don't want to combat disinformation because that's how they win elections. That's how they intimidate their opponents. That's how they suppress votes. That's how they lie and say a 2020 election that they got their asses kicked in, that they actually won. This is who they are, every one of them, from Candace Owens to J.D. Vance. This is the right wing. This is your modern Republican Party. You must stand up to them.